Hello, I'm Rupert Turton, and welcome to the Business Spotlight interview, where we talk to local business leaders about their journey. This week, I'm joined by Jaime Cox from Exactech UK, where he's the regional sales manager. Exactech sell medical equipment, orthopedic implants, joint replacements, and things like that. So, Jaime, welcome along.
Welcome. Hi, Rupert. Thank you ever so much for the invite. It's nice
No,
to have a catch up.
very interested to talk to you as well. It's an interesting industry, I think you work in, is the best way to put it. Probably best thing to do is you to start off by just explaining, first of all, exactly what you do and how long you've been doing it.
Sure. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's a very niche market, and a lot of friends and families, when you tell them what you do, actually kind of don't actually believe it. So, as you say, I work for a company called Exactech, with an orthopedic implant manufacturer and producer, and everything from knee replacements, hip replacements, shoulder replacements, ankle replacements. We're one of obviously many in the market, and our job specifically is to sell implants to the NHS and private sector. And then once the surgeon has decided that is the implant that they want to use, that we actually go into theatre with them, train them on how to use that particular implant, not necessarily do the surgery, but that particular implant,
Yeah.
and tell them all the kind of different options that they have. So I suppose in a sense we're a bit like a walking Bible for them, or instruction manual for that particular implant, and kind of get them going and to help train the nurses. It is pretty strange in terms of what you're doing it, because obviously I think everybody has this thing that surgeons are, they know all they've been through all this training, they know all the operation they're doing, and they're absolutely right, they do. But they have so many different products for all the different operations that they do, that they need someone specialist to be able to kind of give them that information for them to make an informed decision. And that's really what we're there to do. How long have I been doing this? I haven't got enough fingers, I don't think, to actually do that. 14 years this October, and I came into the industry all with Exactech. All those 14 years, came into the industry at the bottom, worked, day to day on the field, in the hospitals, doing all that, and I've worked my way up through the company now as a regional sales manager, where I have 4 people across the south of the UK doing that for me in different areas. And I'm lucky enough, hopefully, to be a bit more of an expert in the area, where I can go in for complex, difficult cases and help and give my expertise there, as well as ensuring that from the sales side of things, we're obviously running a successful and profitable business.
Yeah, cool. So what are the biggest challenges then running a medical business at the moment?
So obviously, it's no secret that in the last few years we had a big medical pandemic with
Yep.
COVID-19, and literally overnight we went from operation sales to pretty much nothing, and then obviously trying to get back into get things back up and running. And that's been difficult, because it's been a lot of unpredictability, with obviously restrictions allowing people in, what is a priority for operations, in terms of, either it's trauma related, is it elective joint replacements. So that's always caused, we're kind of at the back end of it now, but that also brings its own problems, in the fact that all those patients that haven't had operations for
Yeah.
so long are A, more complex, and B, there's such a huge number that actually trying to fit them in is putting a lot of strain on the medical companies to supply the implants that are actually they're required for it. So it's great in terms of a sales point of view, absolutely, but in terms of logistical and that, we are kind of trying to play catch up from a couple of years ago, which are pretty much, you're looking at probably another year, I think, before we're actually back up to where we are.
Wow, right, okay.
And recently, as you know, there's been hospital strikes with the junior doctors and the nurses, and again that puts a stress on ourselves from doing it, and obviously patients, because things get cancelled last minute. They don't know who's going to turn necessarily up to work, and it doesn't just mean that patient gets moved to the following week. That patient gets moved to within the next 4 to 6 weeks. So that equipment, because not all the equipment that we provide is available on the shelf. They have to actually bring the equipment in from ourselves. So that has to go back out. And unfortunately, our equipment, as I like to joke with my distribution team, has a quicker turnaround than an EasyJet plane. It's required elsewhere the following week, if not the same week. So that then puts a knock-on effect if something is cancelled. So the guys who work in our distribution and logistics unit are miracle workers, because they could probably show people at Heathrow air traffic control a thing or two about organizing things. But yeah, it's definitely proved tough in terms of the organization, but it's what the world we live in, and we've just got to kind of crack on really and accommodate where we can.
It's interesting as well. I thought an industry like yours, the biggest challenge would be something around the technology and making the limbs. It's interesting. It's a logistics problem that's the biggest headache.
Yeah, I think with Brexit as well, it's caused a lot of logistical issues. Most of manufacturing around limbs, for example, we manufacture in the US.
Yeah.
Other companies do manufacture outside the US. But it's still obviously getting into it. I mean, in terms of production, that was probably one of the things that came back after COVID the quickest, because of the way that the machines are and the vast size of the factories. The operating of the machinery could be done in isolation.
Yeah.
So we've never really struggled with that from that side in terms of production. In terms of getting things across, it's been logistically difficult. Not to the point where it's been detrimental to it. It's just required a lot more operational planning, I think.
Yeah.
Side.
Yeah. Again, back to logistics then, aren't we?
Pretty much, and that's why I say the guys are miracle workers. I think in terms, I think in terms of, it hasn't slowed down technological advances, any of that kind of thing, because it's allowed the engineers and the researchers that work for us and other companies to have that time to develop future things. As we do with Exactech, we work a lot on active intelligence, in predictions, and even things that are obviously not necessarily robotic surgery, but in terms of personalized guided surgery. And that is there in the sense of how to improve that and show that it actually does do it. Because ultimately, when you have a surgery, you are relying on the surgeon's eyes and skills. That's what you are. So anything we can help to improve it would definitely work. So I think the time has allowed that to happen from that during the COVID pandemic, definitely.
So what's been your biggest learning since you've been the UK regional sales director?
So
manager?
One of the things that's been the biggest learning is, obviously, I took this post up at the start of 2022. So we kind of saw it through the pandemic. But one of my biggest learning in this role is actually trying to realize that I've got to let go of my other role. I very much enjoyed the clinical side and being in theatre. I still do have that, but a lot more on, say, kind of oncology stuff that we do, or complex cases. And the guys that I brought in that work for us in the field in the UK are fantastic, and for my counterpart as well. And they have, but it's difficult to let go and say, you go and do it, because the level of experience they have compared to us. But sometimes, you've got to, I suppose, a little bit like having your own children. You've got to just let them go and do it and trust that they're going to learn that way, in a sense, rather than hold on. I'm getting better at it, and I have to for it. And I think they benefit as well, because they don't need me in their ear all the time about it from that aspect. But they learn very quickly. You have to in this job, because no 2 days or no 2 operations are exactly the same. And obviously thinking on your feet. So learning to let go and trust other people has been a difficult thing from that side. But that's because I did that role for over 10 years. So, and it's also from a customer point of view, because there's a 10-year trust with me, and then they bring somebody in that they've got to trust that's new, if that makes sense. So if from their side, and to build the trust in them, that's obviously what to say, you trust them, definitely.
So a slightly different question then. What have you learned about yourself during the journey?
What have I learned for myself? I've learned quite how resilient I am. And I have kind of we've done all these personality traits and profiles. And I have kind of 2 different personalities. People tell you I talk a lot. People tell you, I'm quite extrovert, and I don't
Yeah.
mind putting myself out there. But actually, at the end of the week, there's nothing more like than sit on the sofa with a cup of tea and just chilling out, and
Yeah.
rather than going out on a Saturday night and partying or anything like that. And I think the thing is that this is people's lives that are at the end of this. This isn't a piece of wood that you can chop a second time, throw it away and start again or anything.
Yeah.
When you're doing DIY at home, it is a patient's life. And the one thing that it is that ultimately it comes down, it's a surgeon's responsibility, but you have a big input into that to advise them, for them to make the correct informed decision. And the one thing that you don't always get it right, or you're first in the firing line if you don't get it right. And ultimately that can happen. And the one thing is, I have learned about the resilience of myself. At the end of the day, you have to analyze, you have to look at it. And if you let it get to you on a personal level, which a lot of them, it isn't personal to you, you would never get back out and go to work the next day. So I think the one thing I've learned from here, and I advise other people, is actually, if things don't go according to plan, take the time, reassess what happened, actually speak to somebody about it, see where you kind of come, what you can learn from it. Because if you don't, it will eat away inside of you. And ultimately, some things are personal. Personalities do clash. But in the whole, it's not. And once you realize that and you can accept that and understand the difference, I think, it makes working a little bit more enjoyable. Obviously, we don't want to do anything wrong, but at the same time, it does happen. And I've kind of learned how much resilience I actually have got.
And it's quite interesting. You've raised two different topics there as well. I mean, the first being that actually learn from your mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. And if you don't make mistakes, it means you're not trying stuff. So actually, you need to make a few mistakes, because it means you've tried something new. And the second thing you've just hit on as well is the different types of personality that you get in the workplace as well. So one person may think that they're just having a lively conversation. The other one thinks they're having a full-on argument, and it really does affect the way people respond as well.
Absolutely. And we've seen that, by bringing in new people in the past, where I haven't been able to get on with a particular surgeon or something, or they've just not been receptive to me, maybe because I get on with another surgeon particularly well, and they clash with that surgeon. And that happens in the workplace all the time. Then bringing somebody in, I've never stopped any of my guys doing, saying, oh, don't go and see that person, or don't speak to that customer, because it doesn't work. Because you know what? They may well get on with that person. And I've been proven that is actually the case. So in an essence, personalities is, then don't make any kind of prejudgment on it, because another person in the business may actually get on with them quite well. And we actually have, we have discussions within our management team at work about who's the right person and personality to manage some of our kind of KOLs. And it's not always the person you think it is. And we do that because we do what's right for the business, not what's right for the individual. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're just here. When I talk individual, I talk for us as an individual, not the customer. We do what's right for the business and the customer as an individual. And that is interesting from that, and learning from the mistakes. I don't begrudge anyone that makes a mistake, because you say they've tried something. It's if they don't learn from it is where it starts to get a little bit.
Absolutely, that's when it's been a waste, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you see as the biggest opportunities then in your industry in the next 5 years?
The next 5 years in the medical industry is all going technological, pretty much. And that's where I think, as a company, most companies are going to start to go. There's a saying within surgeons, and it's boys and toys. But the red tape, which has to be there, and the regulations means that the toys have to be proven. You can't just bring something in and it's got to have all the research behind it. But they still see them as toys. And I think the advantage in terms of what can happen in the industry. So, for example, on hip and knee replacements, there's people bringing in robots now. That's been in a lot longer in other soft tissue stuff, like, for example, the Da Vinci robot. which have been used in around the abdomen. And I think that is the way that's going forward. And the reason being, it's not I wouldn't say it's de-skilling surgeons, but it's making things a lot more accurate. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, your operation is only as good as the person that's operating it. And that's ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, if you play golf, it's only as good as the person that's swinging the club at the end of the day, for argument's sake.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to anybody. It's the same in any kind of industry. And I think what they're trying to do, obviously, with this is that, you know, if you plug in a set of instructions, that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
The robot can perform things in a correct manner to the best of its ability, so it's reproducible. The downside of those is that they're great when you plug in the instructions, but when something goes wrong, you've got a wealth of experience that, you know, a robot doesn't have. And that's the danger of the technology. But other things in terms of outcomes and prediction, I think, is definitely where it's going for. Innovation is becoming less and less. It's not as fast moving as what it has been in the past. I think in terms of, you know, if you look how quickly, for example, knee replacements or shoulder replacements, you know, evolved, it's slowing down now because it's where do we go next? But I do think technology is where it's going to go.
Or more use of the technology, I suppose, is
I'd imagine so. The downside to that is in terms of it comes at a price, and that is the side that will be difficult for a lot of, especially in terms of, as we know, with the NHS, we look at the recent strikes, you know, the money for the nurses, that they do a grand job, the junior doctors, they do a grand job, and, you know, it's not an endless pot of money, so there's got to be a balance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Shall we change tack a little bit then?
Sure.
So, bit of a personal question, but who is the first person that comes to mind when you think about success?
In terms of, I'm a big golfer, and or I was before I had children. From that,
when you had time,
exactly, when I had time. And I think growing up, one person who was big in it was Tiger Woods, and taking just his success on the golf course, and how he dominated it is just, and that wasn't, there was a talent there, but there was also an ability to work hard and want to be the best, a drive to be the best. And obviously, in various issues happened afterwards, etc., and that off the golf course. But in terms of what he's done to revolutionize the world of golf, you know, when I started playing golf at the age of 12, it was an elder generation sport, you know, with plus fours and, you know, the woolly jumpers, and he kind of took it to make it trendy. And even so now, following the golf, you look at some of the, you know, some of the statistics, how long he was world number one for, and other people are still 300 weeks off. You know, 300 weeks is 6 years as a world number one. So when you look at what he's actually achieved, you know, people throw the phrase, you know, who is the GOAT around all the time. And I think with the success that he has, he's definitely got that tagline. But that is just through pure driven and wanting to be the best. And I think he's proven that with the success that he's had.
So having a very clear vision on what he wanted to achieve, and I suppose being able to imagine himself as
I think he also had the drive and the continued drive and determination, the motivation, because I think that can be difficult. You know, you can start off an exercise plan in January with all the motivation in the world, and you decide you're going to go on holiday for a week at half term for a bit of sun, and all of a sudden it all goes out the window. So having that motivation, say, no, I've got to keep going through this is definitely the key.
You think that drive is supported by his vision of where he's trying to get to then?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If you have a clear vision, and it's the same within business, either within a career or even when you're looking for a customer, in my opinion, if you've got a clear view of where you're going and how you're going to get there, it makes the road a lot easier, and it makes the drive a lot more enjoyable, I suppose, because you have an idea. It's not saying you won't hit bumps in the road. Actually, when you get to those bumps in the road, it's not a question of, oh, I can't do it. It's a question of, how do I navigate it? And that's kind of key for me. So I
Yeah.
think, what we try and do with our guys is have a clear vision on where they want to go within their
Yeah.
career. I've been lucky enough to have the same, and moving it forward is kind of helped me, definitely.
Yeah. Quite interesting what you say as well. I saw on your on the website, the Exactech website, that Bill Petty, who I believe is your MD and
He
also the co-founder.
Yeah, he's a co-founder. He's recently retired,
Oh, right.
but he was an orthopedic surgeon, yeah, himself,
Yeah.
and started that off along with
But it was
Gary
a
Miller, who was a biomedical engineer, and they created an implant together, and that's how it all started around a kitchen table.
yeah, because it
Um,
was and looking at the website, I do get the feeling that as a company you have very much there's a cultural element to Exactech, and it was quite interesting because his quote that caught my eye was early in Exactech's development, we established and articulated our purpose, which I think is actually quite leading in its day as well, having that definition of why the company exists, because then everybody in the organization then has, if you like, the star to align to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the culture that we've always driven is, we had it surgeon driven, patient focused. That was one of our strap lines, and
Yeah,
focusing on the patient at the end of it in restoring their motion is kind of the thing that we were after, or they were trying to achieve, and we've always had instilled in it. And I think that's kind of key. Having someone who set up the orthopedic as an orthopedic surgeon, set up the company, and there are other companies out there that have also, in the same line, be it whether diabetes, orthopedics, have been set up by clinicians. I
yeah,
think that leads something into it in the terms of did they set this up, number one, to make money, or do they set this up
hmm,
to help patients, with the secondary thing being in terms of make money? I truly believe that that's what they did. They set it up to help patients, and the
yeah,
money is a byproduct of that, not of
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going to make it. Now, ultimately, they will tell you why they set it up, but that's the reason, and the culture that I've been installing in 14 years, that is why they've done. And that's why I've kind of, I suppose, stayed with Exactech, because it's all about making those patients and giving them a better way of life after it.
yeah,
And I like the culture that's installed. We are a family. And I
yeah,
think that having that family culture at a company, however big or however small, makes a massive difference to your employees.
yeah,
Sometimes you have that hard and fast, no, it's this, I'm sorry. Then you become very much, I don't know whether I haven't looked whether the attrition rates increase or something like that, but it does become less of a family feel. And I think if you value a team member and they feel part of a family, then I think it brings in a more productive team, and environment from there.
yeah. I say that's all of that very good advice actually, because it's everything from actually knowing why the business exists to the culture inside your business and looking after your team. First of all, they are, let's face it, the biggest asset to virtually every business as well.
Absolutely, yeah, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. Just before we finish, I also know that you set up a charity, Team Perfection.
Yeah, so not that I was content with, obviously, in the job that I have, working numerous hours per week, but I set up back in 2021 hashtag Team Perfection,
Hmm.
and the reason we set that up was, unfortunately, I lost two family members through sepsis. My nan, God bless her, in 2017, and my father-in-law in just at the start of COVID, in 2020.
Yeah,
And so we raised money for the UK Sepsis Trust. And I do have friends who have been affected by sepsis. One of our sponsors, our headline sponsor, he was affected by sepsis. But also we
yeah,
raised money for Help for Heroes. And that's my brother-in-law's a serving member of the military in the
yeah,
RAF. And my father-in-law was a great supporter of the military. And I did that really because, one thing, I like a challenge.
yeah.
Two, I like to tell my wife I like a challenge. Three,
Mm,
she tells me I'm mad.
yeah,
And fourth, I think for me, it's giving something back. I mean, at the moment, we've raised £4,500
yeah,
in total in donations. It's taken a little bit of a back step at the moment in terms of through the last 12 months. Our last challenge was Rutland Water last July. We walked in a day on probably the
yeah,
hottest day of the year.
Yeah.
But that's the way it goes. And we're always looking for new things. We've got a new challenge coming out soon. And the whole bit really for me is we're raising money, but it's putting smile on people's faces. I like to make people smile. I like to make people feel good. I'd
Yeah.
rather forgo anything myself just to make sure that people have that experience. And it's kind of giving something back in terms of with the charity and do it. And hopefully we can do a bit more with it. We can take it. I mean, we have a Just Giving page. We have a Facebook page.
Yeah.
But if anybody has got any kind of, how can I put it, wants to get involved, or anybody wants to touch base, they can do. They get in contact with me with it. It'd be great. And yeah, it's kind of my sideline, I suppose, to kind of my enjoyment, my hobby, because the whole family get involved as well. Even my youngest daughter, who was 5 at the time, walked 14 miles as part of a challenge. So they love it. They get involved.
5-year-old, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely something, and hopefully something we can make a bit more of in the future.
Brilliant. Jamie, been great talking to you today. Quite really interesting as well. You got any final bits of advice before we finish?
Yeah, I think for me, there's a couple of bits of advice is, if you're looking to get into a career, don't be too set on what the career is that you're going to get into. Keep an open mind, because I kind of fell into this by accident, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And from a work point of view that we have, I get a lot of friends and family that ask me what's my biggest advice if they're going in for an operation. And my biggest advice is be compliant, do as you're told, and it is a miracle. You need to work at it. So if anybody is, that's the best thing, and you'll get the best results possible.
Brilliant. Cool. Jamie, great to talk to you today. Look forward to talking to you again in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rupert. Appreciate it.